The story goes that there was a man named Chen Baoyagong from Fujian who once held the position of a Daoyuan official in Qingju. One evening, he was sitting alone in his room when suddenly a woman lifted the door curtain and entered. Chen Gong looked up but didn't recognize her. The woman was stunningly beautiful, dressed in palace attire with long sleeves, and her makeup was that of a palace maid. She smiled at Chen Gong and said, "On this chilly night, you're still sitting alone. Could it be that you're feeling lonely?" Chen Gong was startled and asked, "Who are you?" She replied, "I live not far from here, your neighbor to the west." Though Chen Gong suspected that she might be a female ghost, he still felt a strong liking for her. He approached and held her sleeve, inviting her to sit down. The woman had a remarkable way of speaking, and her words were elegant. As Chen Gong grew more enamored, he couldn't resist embracing her. The woman didn't resist, but she looked around and asked, "Is there no one else here?" Chen Gong hurriedly closed the door and said, "No," urging her to undress for intimacy. The woman felt shy and nervous, so Chen Gong eagerly helped her remove her clothes. She said, "I am 20 years old this year and still a virgin. I cannot endure rough treatment." After their lovemaking was done, the bed linens were stained with traces of blood. A while later, the two lay side by side, talking intimately. The woman introduced herself as Lin Siniang. Chen Gong asked about her background, and she replied, "My lifelong virtue and chastity have been nearly depleted due to your advances. If you truly love me, let's enjoy our time together, without asking too many questions." Not long after, the roosters crowed, signaling dawn, and the woman rose to leave. From that day on, Siniang would come every night, and each time, they would close the door to drink wine and discuss various matters. When they talked about music, Siniang could distinguish and explain the 5 notes, leading Chen Gong to guess that she must be skilled in singing and playing music. She replied, "I learned a bit when I was young." Chen Gong asked her to perform a song. Siniang said, "It's been a long time since I've played any music. I've probably forgotten the rhythm. I'm afraid it might invite ridicule from knowledgeable listeners." Despite his persistent requests, Siniang finally lowered her head, clapped her hands in rhythm, and sang the Yi Liang Zi song. Her voice was poignant and melancholic, and her singing left her in tears. Moved by her performance, Chen Gong also felt a sense of sorrow. He approached and comforted her, saying, "Don't sing such mournful songs. They will only sadden our hearts." Siniang responded, "Music is an expression of emotions. Just as a sad person can't make it joyful, a joyful person can't make it sorrowful." Their bond grew stronger by the day, surpassing even that of a married couple. As time went on, household members began to eavesdrop on Siniang's singing. Everyone who heard her songs would shed tears. Chen's wife secretly caught a glimpse of Siniang and believed that no woman in the world could be so enchanting. She suspected that Siniang was either a ghost or a fox spirit, fearing that Chen Gong would become ensnared by supernatural entities. She urged Chen Gong to sever ties with Siniang. Chen Gong didn't comply. Instead, he continued to inquire about Siniang's background. With a sad expression, Siniang said, "I was a palace maid in the former Ming Hangwang's mansion. I died tragically 17 years ago. You, sir, are virtuous, which is why we love each other. But I don't dare harm you. If you suspect or fear me, I will leave." Chen Gong replied, "I don't doubt you. Since we have such a deep affection, I should know your true story." He asked about her life in the palace, and Siniang recounted her past experiences, captivating him with her tale. When she spoke of the downfall of the palace, her voice choked, and she sobbed uncontrollably. Siniang rarely slept. She would rise each night to recite Buddha's scriptures such as the Great Compassion Mantra and Vaira Sutra. Chen Gong asked, "Can you still repent under the 9 springs?" She replied, "That's only part of the reason. I want to transcend my past life, so I recite scriptures for rebirth." Siniang often critiqued poetry and verses with Chen Gong. If a piece wasn't good, she would point out the problems. But if it was beautiful, she would recite it aloud with a melodious, elegant voice, leaving people never tired of hearing it. Chen Gong asked, "Are you skilled in writing poetry?" Siniang replied, "I occasionally wrote when I was alive." Chen Gong asked her for a poem, and she smiled, saying, "My personal emotions aren't worth mentioning in front of the enlightened." 3 more years passed, and one evening, Siniang suddenly bid farewell to Chen Gong with a sorrowful expression. Chen Gong was taken aback and asked for the reason. Siniang replied, "Because I was innocent in my past life and diligently recited scriptures even after death. The king of the underworld has granted me rebirth into a noble family. Tonight, we must part ways and will never meet again." With these words, Siniang's expression turned sorrowful, and tears welled up in Chen Gong's eyes. In response, Chen Gong arranged a feast and drank heavily with Siniang. She sang with passion, her voice filled with sorrow, each note carrying 100 sentiments. Especially in the sad parts, she would break into sobs. The music paused and resumed, until the piece concluded. Siniang couldn't continue drinking, so she stood up and paced around, signaling her intention to leave. Chen Gong repeatedly tried to persuade her to stay, and she sat back down for a while. As the roosters suddenly crowed, Siniang said, "I can't stay any longer. Although you often accuse me of not daring to present a poem, today we are to part ways forever. Let me hastily write one." So she requested a brush from Chen Gong and composed on the spot. "My heart is full of sorrow. My thoughts are in disarray, unable to carefully ponder. The rhythms are disordered, and I ask that you not show this to others." With these words, Siniang laughed, covering her sleeve. Chen Gong accompanied her to the door, and in the blink of an eye, Siniang vanished. Chen Gong stood there in melancholy for a long time, looking down at the poem she had written. The handwriting was neat and graceful, so he carefully preserved it. The poem read, "Locked silently in the deep palace for 17 years, who would I ask about the fallen country under the blue sky? I gaze idly at the sealed palace halls, my tears yearning for the king's transformation into the cuckoo. Beyond the seas, waves and tides glow in the slanting evening sun, and the melodies of Han's flutes and drums are quiet against the signal fires. My beauty's strength was feeble, unable to endure severe trials. My virtuous nature ached, asking only about ascetic practices. Day by day, I recite the virtuous teachings, idly perusing 2 or 3 pages of leaf text. Singing high-pitched melodies of the pear garden, I replace sorrow with song. I beg you, sir, to listen alone and feel the same sadness." There are repeated disjointed lines in the poem, leading to suspicions of errors in its transmission.
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.